But anyway, I'm going to talk now about Antarctica, and about, in particular, the cruise that we're going to be doing down there in 2024. So we run trips down to Antarctica every 2 or 3 years, and the last one we did was actually, of course, pre-pandemic. So it's been a bit of a longer gap than usual. So we got our next cruise in, let's say, January 2024. So just over a year from now. And we'll be taking you down, well, hopefully taking you down to Ushuaia via Buenos Aires. So you fly from London all the way down to Buenos Aires, the capital of Argentina, and from there we take a flight down to Ushuaia, the southernmost city in the world. After a night there, you hop on the ship, and we do this 18-night voyage, which goes to the Falkland Islands, to South Georgia, and then down, of course, to the Antarctic Peninsula itself. So we start with a flight down to Ushuaia, and a very attractive town, attractive city, right on the edge of the Beagle Channel. The Andes Mountains in the background. We have a night in Ushuaia, and there's some great birding to be done around the town even before you hop on the ship. There are kelp geese along the coast, a beautiful little goose. The male is white, the female is a beautiful chocolate brown color. Dolphin gull, one of the more attractive gull species in South America. And if you're very lucky, maybe even the magnificent great grebe, the largest grebe in the world, and a real stunning bird. For those who want, we'll arrange a trip into the Tierra del Fuego National Park, an area of beautiful mountains and lakes and forests, home to some really interesting birds. And the two we particularly want to see on this trip is the stunning Magellanic woodpecker. Can be a surprisingly confiding bird, one of the largest woodpeckers in the world, and certainly one of the most spectacular. And the magnificent Andean condor as well, which lives along pretty much the whole range of the Andes, from Colombia down to Tierra del Fuego. But after a day exploring the Tierra del Fuego National Park, we'll join our ship, and this is the ship we'll be using, and also the ship that Tim's going to be showing you later on for our cruises around Spitsbergens. This is the MV Ortelius. It's a very comfortable ice-strengthened vessel, carries about 109 people in total, so it's a small ship. We've been chartering the Ortelius for over 10 years, both for Antarctica and for Spitsbergen as well. It's a ship with a range of different cabin grades, all of which are very comfortable. The top right is the standard cabin grade, the cabin with porthole. You could upgrade if you want to down to top left cabin with porthole, bottom left cabin with window, and then you've got the superior cabin top right, and there's a photo there of the dining room as well. All the cabins are en suite, and they're very comfortable. And our cruise route goes from, as I mentioned, Ushuaia over to the Falkland Islands, have a couple of nights on the Falklands, and then we cross to South Georgia. From South Georgia down to the Antarctic Peninsula, time and weather depending, maybe with a stop off at the South Orkney Islands en route. But we leave Ushuaia and head out along the Beagle Channel and out into the Southern Ocean, and it won't be long before you start to see your first seabirds. One of the most amazing things about this cruise is that there's always something to see from the ship. The Ortelius has a lot of deck space, a lot of area to go out and watch the wildlife, and there's always some interesting birds to see albatrosses, petrels, prions following the ship. So there never is a dull moment. Black-browed albatross here is one of the commonest species we'll see on the crossing to the Falklands, but we might also see great shearwater on the right. The little Wilson storm petrel, really abundant down in the southern oceans in the austral summer, and the very badly named white-chinned petrel, top left. You need to get good light and a close view to see its white chin. After a day of crossing the Southern Ocean, we reach the Falkland Islands. We have, I say, a couple of days here to explore. On the majority of trips, the focus on the islands on the north western coastline of the Falklands, up on Carcass Island and Saunders Island. And these two islands give you a good cross section of the archipelago's wildlife, and then we end with a day in, or half a day in Stanley before heading back out to sea again. So as with all of our excursions off the ship, they are by zodiac, and there's enough zodiacs on the Ortelius to take everybody on shore at the same time. So there's no need to queue and to wait your turn when you're on the ship. In fact, all the ships we use for all of our wildlife charters are small enough so everybody can get off the boat at the same time. This is Saunders Island, quite a sort of typical scenery in the Falklands. There are penguins along the beach, albatrosses, and other birds up on the slopes. Here we'll see our first penguin species, the Magellanic penguin. These are common throughout the Falkland Islands, and there are also smaller birds to look for as well. The little tussock bird is an endemic species for the Falklands, and particularly Carcass Island is a particularly good area to look for tussock birds and other endemic land birds. You have the beautiful long-tailed meadowlark, and another endemic, the striated caracara, known as Johnny Rook by the locals, and say these are endemic scavengers to the Falklands. Throughout the islands, we'll see some interesting range of penguins. Gentoo penguin, here's one of the commoner ones. And the rockhopper, this is the only place we'll see rockhopper on the cruise. Comical little birds that you will see jumping out of the sea and rock hopping their way up to their colonies. And there's a small population of king penguins as well on the Falklands. And there are a few on Saunders Island, and we can also arrange a visit over to Volunteer Point, which is relatively close to Port Stanley, to look at the king penguin colony there. But the kings on the Falklands are a bit of a taster, really, for what is to come on South Georgia. And you'll get to see your first albatross colony here as well. The black-browed albatrosses, they nest on Saunders Island. And you get some really fantastic views of these birds. They're very confiding, and for the photographer, this whole holiday is just a dream. So much to photograph, and say the wildlife is so photogenic and confiding. And then for our second day on the Falklands, we move round to East Falkland to Stanley. The little capital of the Falkland Islands has a population of only 2,500 people. It's an interesting place to wander around for a little while, and as this is one of the more famous buildings in Stanley, the church with the whalebone arch. Then from the Falkland Islands, we head out to sea again, heading east towards South Georgia. It's a 2-day crossing to South Georgia, and once again there'll be plenty of seabirds to enjoy en route. Hopefully you'll see your first wandering albatross, the bird with the longest wingspan of any bird in the world, and at some point we'll cross the Antarctic convergence, and this is the meeting point of the cold Antarctic waters where they meet the slightly warmer sub-Antarctic waters, and where you've got these two water bodies meeting, you get a lot of upwelling nutrients, and it's a very rich area for seabirds and for cetaceans. And you notice a drop in the temperature as well. Once you've passed the convergence, you might start to see your first icebergs popping up on the horizon. Maybe even the you should see some black-bellied storm petrels, a bird that favors the colder waters beyond the convergence. And then eventually we'll get to Shag Rocks. This is 6 small little rocky islets lying 240 kilometers to the west of South Georgia. And it's a breeding ground for albatrosses, very rich feeding ground for albatrosses and cetaceans. And then we reached South Georgia itself, and this for me was the absolute highlight really of the trip. A highlight packed cruise, of course. You get 4 days to explore the South Georgia. For most of us, it's a trip to Antarctica as a once in a lifetime opportunity. I really would say don't go down there without going to South Georgia. It is just one of probably the most amazing place I've ever been, and home to some of the most amazing wildlife spectacles that I've ever had. So cruises typically tend to stay on the northwestern side of South Georgia, where it's sheltered from the winds and where most of the wildlife is centered. As you cruise along the coast, you get this most amazing landscape of rocky mountains and glaciers going down to the sea. Light mantled sooty albatrosses flying overhead, and lots of Antarctic fur seals lining the beach, along with piles of the larger cousins, the elephant seals. So we do our trip in January, which is peak time for the wildlife. But by then, most of the actual adult elephant seals and a lot of the adult fur seals have actually headed back out to sea again. So we're mostly seeing immatures and females. The giant petrels are the vultures of Antarctica. They're known locally as the stinkers. There are 2 species, southern and northern giant petrels. They're difficult to tell apart. One of the best ways of telling them apart is the color of the tip of the bill. So it's greenish in southern, and it's a dark red in northern giant petrel. So this is obviously a northern giant petrel. The South Georgia is just absolutely teeming with birds, with penguins in particular. If you're keen on penguins, this really is the place to go. There are over 3 million macaroni penguins nesting here annually, and an equal number of king penguins as well. I think that one of the absolute highlights for me of my trip to South Georgia, was the opportunity to go to St. Andrews Bay. And here there's an estimated 250,000 breeding pairs of king penguins. This is the spot that David Attenborough stood in, I think it was the Trials of Life. And you look over this incredible sea of penguins stretching into the distance. So with the young birds and the non-breeders, there's probably 750,000 or more penguins at this one spot. And we were so lucky on the day we went there. It was just beautiful blue sky. We're only supposed to stay there for the morning, but everybody was just so blown away. We ended up spending the entire day there. We also run our trips, as say, in January. At this time of the year, Prion Island is open to tourists. This is a breeding site for wandering albatross. So we get the opportunity to go up onto the island in small groups and to look at these amazing birds. You may see them just maybe sitting on eggs, or if you're very lucky and there's a changeover, then you'll hopefully get to see them displaying with their wings outstretched. A real highlight of the cruise. There are plenty of cetaceans, luckily, to see as well. This is a breaching southern right whale. Humpback whales are seen regularly around South Georgia. Fins and blues as well from time to time. Fortunately, the population of whales is increasing, but we do visit Grytviken on the cruise for the ship needs to get its paperwork stamped, and it's an interesting place to visit. This was one of the largest, or the largest whaling station on South Georgia, and operator in the early 1900s to the 1960s. While we're there, we'll also visit the grave of one of history's great polar explorers, Ernest Shackleton, who died on here. One of the traditional things to do is to take a little dram of whiskey while you're there, and they raise a toast to the boss, as his crew called him. There's also, when you're on the Falklands, there are a couple of other interesting endemics. Falklands, South Georgia, sorry, there are a couple of endemics to look for. The endemic South Georgia pintail, a close relative of the yellow-billed pintail, and the little tiny South Georgia pipit as well. And these were very rare up until not that long ago. But they're actually getting a lot commoner now, helped by the rat eradication program that took place several years ago. And on the 18th of May 2018, South Georgia was declared as a rat-free island. So hopefully over the coming years, the seabirds and the little land birds will take advantage of that, and the populations will increase further. So as well as doing morning and evening excursions, there's also the occasional opportunity to do a dawn trip as well. This was a dawn cruise we did to Gold Harbour to look at the king penguins there. And after 4 amazing days exploring South Georgia, we head out to sea once again, and turn south towards Antarctica itself, once again looking at the seabirds and cetaceans as we go. So as we head further south, you get some really sought after, beautiful seabirds to look out for. The snowy white snow petrel on the left hand side, and the rare Antarctic petrel on the right. It's quite Antarctic petrel can be quite difficult to see, and we spent a long time looking for Antarctic petrel. Finally saw one, got everybody out. It circled the ship a couple of times. Everybody was very happy. An hour or so later, there were hundreds of them, thousands of them actually, and we think we just stumbled across a sort of molting area for Antarctic petrels. The vast majority of birds in this shot are Antarctic petrels, with a few snow petrels mixed in. So then eventually we end up down on the Antarctic Peninsula itself. It's a vast and spectacular finger of land that juts north from the Antarctic continent. But we'll be spending most of our time just exploring where I've put that circle in the top right of the image, just poking around in the Weddell Sea, and going up around the northern tip of the Antarctic Peninsula. As you would imagine, the scenery down here is nothing less than spectacular. Huge icebergs, huge mountains and glaciers. It really is a jaw-dropping landscape. We'll take to Zodiacs, explore the bays and the fjords to enjoy this amazing spectacle. And we'll also visit some more penguin colonies as well, of course. So there are only really two true Antarctic penguins, and that's the Adelie penguin and the emperor penguin, and these are the only two that live exclusively on the Antarctic continent. And ice conditions permitting, we'll go and visit a huge Adelie penguin colony. There is a chance of emperor penguin. You can't get to their colonies, but you do occasionally from time to time see the odd stray birds sitting on an ice floe. The Adelies are, say, beautiful birds to see. Wherever you're around a penguin colony, you need to keep your eyes open for leopard seals, a very reptilian seal that's one of the main predators down around Antarctica, and one of the main predators of the penguins. So the great thing about the Ortelius is actually it's got a lot of deck space. So there's a lot of places for you to sit and watch the wildlife. And we'll be looking out for cetaceans as well as the birds. Orca are seen regularly around Antarctica as well as around South Georgia itself. There are 5 what they call ecotypes of orca in and around Antarctica, from A to E, and each vary slightly in the size and the structure and the coloration, and have different habits and prey. It may be that in time some of these will be split into different species. And as well as the orcas, there's the humpback whale. It's probably the largest common whale, the commonest large whale that you get around Antarctica, but also Antarctic minke whales and other species to look out for as well. And we'll make sure that you get an opportunity to set foot on the Antarctic continent too. So after exploring Antarctica, we then head back towards the mainland, back to South America, but we'll stop at the South Shetland Islands en route, home to some other large penguin colonies, in particular chinstrap penguins. There's some huge chinstrap penguin colonies on the South Shetlands, and these make a really a very nice grand finale to our cruise around the region. And then we end with a 2-day crossing of the infamous Drake Passage over back to South America again. This is Cape Horn, and then we're back to Ushuaia, and we reverse the journey back home.